Good afternoon and welcome to another wonderful episode of Baking with Bryan Live. I am Bryan and welcome to my kitchen. We are baking live today. We have another exciting show to offer you today. Sort of a kind of a basic item, basic thing that we're making today. Pretty simple, straightforward. It's only got 8 ingredients in it. So it's super easy. Lemon bars. Which are a really great summer item for picnics, for brunch, for just eating when you're bored. They're a combination of a shortbread crust and this really tart, lemony. It's kind of a custard topping, but it's really good. They're really good and refreshing. Yeah, those are the two components. So a short crust or a short dough is a pastry dough that hasn't been overworked very much. It's got a high ratio of fat and sugar to the flour, and the idea of it is that it creates a really crumbly texture. So it just kind of crumbles away in your mouth, kind of like shortbread cookies. Pie dough is another example of a short dough. When you roll it out, it doesn't have very much elasticity, so it doesn't really bounce back when it gets rolled out. It starts to crumble around the edges when you roll it out, so that's kind of a short dough. So our dough today is actually a really short dough, because you'll see it just crumbs. It doesn't even come together as a dough. It just crumbs. It's butter, sugar, and flour, and that's it. So we're going to start off by making that, and then our filling is kind of like a custard, if you will, because it's an egg-based filling with sugar, egg, a little bit of flour, and fresh lemon juice and lemon zest. And I'll review again lemon zest and all that stuff when we get to that. So to start off with, we're actually going to prepare our pan. So this recipe makes a quarter sheet pan or a 9x13 baking dish. I'm using a quarter sheet pan today. We're using our wonderful ham for baking, which is my number one ingredient in the kitchen. It's a top secret weapon in the kitchen. We're going to spray the pan with this. This is a baking spray that already has flour mixed into it. So instead of having to butter and flour your pan, it's already on a can for you, and it works really, really well. So we got our pan prepared. Now we're going to move on over to the mixer, and we're going to make our crust. I'm using the paddle attachment on the mixer. And to the bowl, we're just going to literally add all the ingredients to the bowl and just let it mix until it gets to the right consistency. I have a stick of butter. And again, this crust is enough to make one 9x13 baking dish or one quarter sheet pan size pan. Butter in, sugar in next. We're going to let that, got a little water in there. We're going to let that mix for a few minutes just to kind of cream the butter and the sugar together. The butter is room temperature soft, so it'll cream really easily into the sugar. If you're doing a pie dough, which is another example of a short crust, you want your butter to be cold for that, because you want those chunks of butter to create the flaky layers of the pie dough. For this, it doesn't. Room temperature, so that we're creaming it together. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be cold. So I'm just mixing it until the flour and the butter and the sugar come together, and that's it. And then we're going to scrape the bowl down and add our flour to it. Just scrape everything down into the center of the bowl, and then we're going to add. So this was one stick of butter. And a quarter cup of sugar and 1 cup of flour. Always start your mixer on low when you're putting flour into your recipe. Otherwise you end up with flour everywhere, all over your kitchen. And then you can always kick it up to get all the ingredients mixed together. You can see it's, I don't know if you can see it on there or not yet, it's a very crummy texture. It's not forming a dough, it's just about there. There's a little spot that needs to be scraped off. But it's a very crumbly mixture. It's not a really doughy texture. It hasn't come together. So Just give it a little scrape. Any little butter pieces that haven't mixed in yet, or if there's some flour that hasn't mixed in. Then we're just going to mix it real quick to come together. And that's it. And we're going to keep it crummy. Because again, that's going to give us the shortbread textured crust that we're going for these. So, scrape off the paddle a little bit. And then we're going to take this. So you can see it's not a dough. It's a crumb. And we're going to sprinkle this in the pan. In our prepared greased pan. Get every last crumb. Every last crumb of your crummy dough. And then with your hands, you're going to kind of spread out the crumb mixture. Kind of evenly. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then you're going to press it down. So just very lightly with your hand, making a little bit of noise here. Press all of the crumbs down, and you're compacting it to make the crust. Might stick a little bit, not a problem. You can kind of see, I don't know if you guys can see, you can kind of see some of the butter that hasn't really mixed into the flour. It's kind of got striations throughout the dough, which is really nice because that's going to make for a nice crumbly and light textured crust. So you want to make sure that it's pretty evenly distributed across the entire pan. Go around and pack down the edges. And that is pretty much it. There's no holes. It feels pretty even. There's no thin spots. And there you have your crust. This is going to bake in the oven for about 25 minutes till it's about golden brown. The oven is set at 350 degrees. So we're gonna pre-bake the crust. There's nothing raw in the crust except for the flour. So there's not like any eggs or anything. So essentially what it's gonna do is it's gonna caramelize the sugar and it's gonna bake the flour and kind of melt the butter into all the ingredients and create a really nice crust for the lemon bars. So this is gonna go into the oven about 25 minutes. You're more looking for color than you are for time in this. You're looking for that nice, really golden brown color. And it smells really good when it bakes. So we're going to go ahead and pop this in the oven. And then I have one that is already done. And you can see around the edges, it's got a really nice golden, there we go. You can see around the edges, it's got a golden color around the edges. The dough is set. It's not mushy anymore. So that's wonderful. So that's ready to go. We're going to make our filling next. So we're going to start off the filling. We're going to start off the filling by zesting our lemons. So this recipe calls for 2 lemons, zested and juiced. So the zest of the lemon is the yellow part. So once you, I'm going to not use that one. Move on over here so we don't make as much noise. This is a lemon zester. It's a microplane. I think it's micro. Actually, this is the OXO brand. I really like this one actually. It's just got a really fine. I use it for garlic. I use it for citrus zest. It's a really fine grater, so it just grates the very top layer of either your knuckles or the citrus fruit that you are zesting. So you'll see once you start zesting that you can see the different layers. You can see that there's the really bright outer layer, then there's a little paler of an inner layer. Better? So you can see the bright layer there. You can see it's a little bit paler, and then the white is called the pith. The pith is bitter, so you don't want pith. You just want the yellow layer. So the zester is really great at just getting that yellow layer off. The zest holds all of the essential oils of the citrus fruit, which is why it has the most flavor. It's got the strongest flavor, which is why we use the zest. I use zest. Whenever something calls for lemon juice, I always use a little bit of zest as well to give it that extra kick of lemon flavor. It gives it that really nice tart lemony flavor. These would work well as orange bars. You could do the same thing, substitute orange juice and orange zest. They work as lime bars. Use lime zest and lime juice, obviously. This one, though, we're doing classic lemon bars. So real quick, without shaving off too much of my fingers, this recipe is really quick too. So like if you need a last minute dessert or something, the only trick is you gotta cool it. You have to cool the bars before you can cut them. So if you're in a time pinch, you can throw it in the freezer like I did today. Or you can let them sit overnight in the fridge. So we've got our zest. Made a little bit of a mess, but that's all right. I was watching Julia Child earlier and she just brushes it onto the floor. We're gonna juice them as well. This is a different kind of juicer than I usually use. I usually use my hand press juicer. This is more of a traditional style citrus juicer. No real reason for the difference. You get pretty much the same amount of juice. This one sometimes gets clogged a little bit, which it might, and I'll show you how I unclog it. But we're just gonna run our lemons over it. And it pretty much gets every last bit of life out of the lemon. It's got a little filter in the top that collects the seeds and the pulp, and then the juice drips down. Sometimes that filter can get clogged, which is starting to now. After about 2 or 3 lemons, it gets clogged. And then I just run my finger in it to move some of the boozy what's it out of the way.
Can you show us the other one?
No. No. The other what? The other juicer?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
How to properly to use it is all.
This juicer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the other juicer that I have, which I've used on the show. And essentially, you put your lemon half in. Let me grab. This one doesn't separate the seeds and the who's what's it as well. So I always juice it over a strainer. But essentially, you just squeeze, and the juice comes pouring out. So there's that one. You might actually get a little bit more juice out of using the more traditional style juicer. Oh, that was it. Okay, so we have our juice. I'm gonna just run it through a strainer. This is nice because it collects the juice in the bottom, so you can actually just pop this in the fridge. I just run it through a strainer a second time just to make sure there's no, I don't like any pulp in my juice, in my orange juice, and my lemon juice. I hate pulp. I hate having to chew my orange juice. So I strain it, and I get pulp free. I'm here. Sorry I'm late. Welcome, welcome, Susan. So glad you could join us. And welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm getting ready to make a mess here. All right, so we have our zest and our juice, and the kitchen smells like I've just cleaned it with Lysol. To this, we're gonna add our sugar. So I have 1.5 cups of sugar. I have 4 eggs. That's why this is a custard, because it's an egg-based, like a cheesecake, like a quiche, like a creme brulee, like a souffle. Those are all custards because they're an egg-based item that's baked. I'm going to whisk that up really well. Whisk it up to dissolve the sugar as much as you can, and just to break up the eggs and make it all a homogeneous mixture. And then we're going to add the flour to it. Just sprinkle the flour in. Love the pulp. It's healthy for you. All right then. I will save all my pulp and mail it out to you. Then we're going to whisk the flour in. It shouldn't be too lumpy, if you use a whisk especially. And that's it. That's the filling. 4 ingredients, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 ingredients if you count the zest, but... And that's it. That's our lemon filling. It smells like... It's like super lemony. It's amazing. Is that regular sugar or confectioner's? It is regular sugar. Granulated sugar. Did it look like confectioner sugar on the screen? I don't know. Sometimes, so we're going to fill the crust with the filling and then bake it in the oven. It's going to bake for about 20 minutes. You can pour the filling in and then turn and take the crust and put it into the oven. You run the risk of spilling though, because it's going to fill it pretty high. So what I do, if I'm ever using a liquidy crust like this, or a liquidy filling, and you have to pour it in a crust and then bake it, I put the crust in the oven on the shelf, pull the shelf out a little bit, and then I take the filling and actually fill the crust in the oven, so that you don't have any spillage. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the crust and I'm going to pull the oven shelf out a little bit, put the crust in, and then I'm going to transfer my filling to a little measuring pitcher. It's not all going to fit, but most of it will fit. It'll take 2 rounds. Or you could even just take the bowl over, but the measuring pitcher is a little bit easier to pour. Pour that in. Will it fit? Oh, it does. Look at that. It all fits. All right, hang on. I see you flailing. Every time I get a comment, he flails. Is the crust cool first? It does not have to be. That one is because I baked it a little earlier. But the lemon bars I baked earlier, the crust was not cool completely before I poured it in, and it didn't make any difference at all. So I'm just gonna start in the center and just pour the filling in. Make sure it fills evenly. And then you just very gently push the rack back in. And this bakes for 20 minutes at 350. And that's it. And those are your lemon bars. So I guess now I have to show you the finished product, right? Through the magic of television, I put them in the freezer so that they would cool quickly. This is what they look like when they're finished and cooled. The filling is set completely. You see it won't pour out when you go like that. And yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dust them with a little bit of powdered sugar. Or a lot of bit of powdered sugar. Whenever I've had lemon bars, they've always been dusted with a really thick layer of powdered sugar. It really cuts, the bars are really tart, so the powdered sugar cuts the sweetness. If you're serving these the next day, wait to do the powdered sugar until right before you cut them and serve them, because if you powder sugar them and put them in the fridge, the sugar will melt overnight in the fridge. It's gonna make a little bit of a mess, but that is fine. All messes can be cleaned up. That is way more than enough powdered sugar. We're just gonna dust them like so. Beautiful. And then we're gonna cut them. So obviously you can cut them however large you'd like. I cut them in the pan. If you're adventurous enough, you can freeze the bars all the way, pop them out of the pan, and then cut them. But I'm not going through all that mess. Cutting them in the pan will be just fine. So I think I'm going to get 12 out of this. I'm going to do 4 by 3. You're going to make sure you cut all the way down through the crust You can do some fun things with the powdered sugar. You can put stencils, you can put a doily over it and powdered sugar over that to make a cute little design on top. You can just powder sugar half of them if you want. You can do them without powdered sugar if you want. I recommend it though. You could freeze them and eat them right from the freezer as like a frozen lemon bar. But look at that, they came out perfect. So I'm going to show you actually on my forward camera. Hopefully. You can see, can you see? Look at that. You see the beautiful crust on the bottom and then the filling right in the middle and that nice topping of powdered sugar. Just be careful when you take a bite. You don't inhale or blow out too hard because the sugar will go everywhere or could choke you. So good. They have an incredible lemon flavor. Not too sweet, and the crust just crumbles away. It's a really nice compliment to the creamy bar. Absolutely amazing. Really, really good. If you're interested, I do make these for sale. You can go to my website, bryonsbakery.net. All the details are there for ordering. Contact me through Facebook if you'd like to place an order for lemon bars for your summer picnic. Father's Day is coming up. Get them for a barbecue cookout. With that, I'm going to have to stay here and finish this lemon bar. So I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope you learned something. The recipe will be posted in a few minutes on the Facebook page. But other than that, thank you for joining me. Next week we're going to be making... What are we making next week? Oh, I thought we had decided. I'm thinking about making a quiche. So we can cover pie crust and then another baked custard filling. So check out my Facebook page. It'll let you know what we're making. Until then, bon appetit, happy cooking. I'm going to finish this lemon bar. Thanks for watching.